I, of course, would like to start this morning, or this afternoon actually, lunchtime, with a welcome to country. So I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present, future, and emerging. Of course, today as well, it is Remembrance Day. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the Second World War. Today, we pay our respects and remember those men and women who have died or suffered in all wars, conflicts, and peace operations. And this week is the all-important NAIDOC week. Always was, always will be. Recognises First Nations people who have occupied and cared for this continent for over 65,000 years. We pay our respects to them as well today. Now, we'd love to welcome everyone today. We had over 180 people joining us on the link before today. Who knows how many more are actually going to be turning up? Of course, normally this event is a bit smaller than this. So, you know, a positive of 2020 is that we get to have all of you here for free joining us today. Thank you so much for making the time for us. Of course, we won't be doing any of our awards this year as a result of the year that we've had. But we do have a theme this year that we thought was quite appropriate, which is all about finding the balance. Of course, we're also loving to talk about the return to basketball. Hooray, that's been some good news in the last little while. And we're so thrilled on behalf of Basketball Victoria, everyone's here to make sure that we do our best to get basketball back on track in Victoria once again after the lack of basketball for this year as well. Now, I would love to introduce on now our wonderful honorary Danielle Green MP, who is attending as the Parliamentary Secretary for Sport and Regional Victoria. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope Danielle is ready to get into it now.
I am. Thank you so much for the introduction, Candy, and thank you to Nick for allowing the women to run this event today. It's great for his support, but it's really good to see women running this event and doing such a good job of it. And I too would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are gathered today, and that it will be so many different countries across the participating audience. And I want to pay my respects to their elders past and present. And I did too want to acknowledge that it's NAIDOC week, and I just love NAIDOC week because you just hear so many wonderful stories that you haven't heard before about the successes, trials and achievements of our Indigenous people. And I'm really privileged as in the state parliament, my electorate is called Yan Yin, and so I'm one of the few electorates that's actually, the name of the electorate is traditional language, and Yan Yin actually means young boy. And the geographic centre of my electorate is Mernda, and that means young girl. So every day in my work, I try and think of the Yan Yins and the Merndas. And today I'm particularly thinking about the Merndas and what I could be doing for those now and in the future. And so it gives me great pleasure to be here at the 2020 Women in Basketball webinar. While it's unfortunate we can't get together in person, but if we're not having lunch, let's face it, that means we're able to start reducing some of the COVID kilos that we've put on because we've been sitting at home and not playing basketball. But it is really good to recognise the incredible contributions of women to the sport of basketball in Victoria. And in a world where women increasingly play multiple roles, from supporting their families to leadership in work and sport. And it's so important that sports like basketball take a moment to recognise all that women do. And events like this, I always like to remind everyone these are vital to getting together, but it's also important to recognise individual women. And given you're not having your awards today, can I encourage you to think about the leading women of basketball and make sure you think about nominating them for Orders of Australia and things like that, because women are still underrepresented in those awards each year, and we want to try and improve that balance. But also the Victorian government has the Victorian Women's Honour Roll, so you can actually nominate current women and girls who are making a contribution, but also those from the past and even posthumously. So I just sort of put that little ad in there. The virus has limited our ability to participate in the sports that we love, but as restrictions lift, I'm sure that basketball will bounce back. But it is important to remember, I think, and on days like today, that women have been disproportionately impacted by the virus, and that's economically. That more women have lost their jobs or had their hours reduced, but also had their carer responsibilities increased. So we all need to be vigilant, and particularly in sport, that women don't drop out of sports like basketball. And we know that women have a higher dropout rate of team sports as they come to adulthood in any case. So I think COVID means that we have to be even more vigilant around that. And I know that some of my local clubs are saying that the group that they're finding hardest to get back to training and thinking about resuming playing adolescent girls and 16 to 18-year-olds. So I think we're all going to have to be vigilant around that. So anything that I can do as the Parliamentary Secretary for Sport, but also we now have, since I would have caught up with you, we now have not only have a Minister for Sport in Martin Pakula, but we've also got a new Minister for Community Sport in Ros Spence. So we've got two voices for sport around the Cabinet table. And when we're talking about balance, I think we've got the balance pretty well right around our Cabinet table, because out of 22 ministers there, including the Premier, 12 of them are women. And of the Labor members of Parliament, we've got exactly 50-50. So I think that we've got a really good balance there, and helping getting back into, encouraging others to get into leadership. I'm proud to say that the Andrews Labor government has stepped up to make sure that women and girls could go back to playing the sports they love as the COVID restrictions ease. And we've done that through the $150 million Experience Economy Survival Package. And so we're providing $40 million for community sport and recreation bodies, including state sporting associations, leagues and clubs, to help them return strongly after the pandemic. Over 750 basketball clubs, leagues and associations across Victoria have received funding through this program, and Basketball Victoria has also received support. We've also provided a $9 million support package that's been rolled out to support the short-term viability of professional clubs and national sporting associations. The Bendigo Spirit, the Melbourne Boomers and Basketball Australia have all benefited from this program. This funding has been backed by our $68 million community sport infrastructure stimulus package. And so 27 projects are set to get game-changing boosts through this package, including several basketball projects. So I'll look forward to going out and seeing the milestones, and then seeing when we've got more players playing on those great projects. And that means that we're providing jobs too for people that have been damaged through the pandemic. This investment is all about working with the sector to improve the quality of and access to community sports infrastructure. And I want to congratulate Basketball Victoria for the work that they did collaboratively with Netball Victoria to identify where we had shortages of the regions where we've got shortages of playing facilities and where they're not meeting current specifications. These projects also have a focus on improving participation outcomes, including levelling the playing field for women in sport and inspiring young women and girls to chase their dreams. From our Change Our Game scholarship program, that's invested up to $220,000 in scholarship funds for as many as 48 scholarships each year, to our workforce development program that's supporting Basketball Victoria's Courage and Confidence to Lead and Building Basketball's Future program. Our $7.2 million Change Our Game campaign is inspiring young women and girls to aspire to become leaders on and off the court. It's about working with our sport and recreation sector partners to make sure that women and girls are inspired to have a go, that they get a fair go. From the court to the boardroom, it's all about creating environments where women and girls feel welcome. And at the outset, I did want to acknowledge particularly my great friend Gerald Rector, who's leading basketball in this country now. And Gerald and I worked together when she was at Vic Health, when she was the CEO there, and I was a board member. And I know that she did amazing transformation for that organisation, and that she has a passion for sport. And I'm sure she'll do the same thing with basketball. So I look forward to catching up with you in person soon, Gerald. In closing, I'd like to thank Basketball Victoria for your efforts to create a welcoming and inclusive environment in your sport. Without this, we couldn't have inspirational stories like the rise of Ezzy Magbeggar, and who is our latest WNBA champion. From her humble beginnings as a junior, rising through the ranks of the Coburg Giants Junior Basketball Club to this year bagging a WNBA title as part of the Seattle Storm. Hers is just one of thousands of inspirational stories of women's success in the sport, an example of when you see it, you can be it. Thank you very much, and I look forward to hearing from other speakers and the panel today. Thanks, Candy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for stepping in for us and for sharing good news and for giving us lots of inspiration and setting the tone, of course, for today as well. In that time as well, our lovely Nick Honey has returned. Nick, over to you to say thank you to some of our VIPs.
Thanks, Candy, and apologies, everyone. Zoom's been working perfectly for weeks, and then it drops out right at the wrong time, so sorry about that. Yeah, just like to acknowledge some of the people that are attending the webinar today. The President of Basketball Victoria, Mike Bainbridge, and BV board member Becky Hyde, so welcome to you. Some of our life members, Elaine Hardwick, Faye Campbell, and I think Mike Bullock are attending. We have Sandra Tomlinson, who's a member of the BV Wall of Fame. We have some commission members, Rhonda Cleveland, Kristen Vidovich, Helen Pawsey and Kim Round, welcome. Margaret Fogarty from the MMBL, as Danielle mentioned. We have Jill Rector, BA CEO, and we have Melissa King, I think, is on the line. She's the new CEO of the Women's World Cup, which will be very exciting up in New South Wales in 2022. Tracy Browning from the WNBL Southside Flyers, and the WNBL, very exciting, starts today. The games start today, 6 o'clock. I think the Flyers are on tomorrow and the Boomers are on tomorrow. You can see Ezzy play tomorrow. And so we wish the very best to the Flyers, the Boomers and the Spirit as they tackle the short but exciting WNBL season that's being played up in Queensland. Kristen Veal has a great history and career in elite basketball, but probably most famous for her wonderful work at Basketball Victoria. And of course, we have Amanda Jenkins from FIBA, who's also there on the line. So welcome, everybody, and thanks for your attendance today. Without any further ado, I might throw back to Candy and we'll get stuck into it with our wonderful panel. So over to you, Candy.
Thank you so much, Nick, and we will kick you off the panel now because we're having the ladies only, but thank you so much once again for joining us, and we look forward to having you at the end again. Now, today's theme, all about finding the balance, and 2020 is the year for that. Either you had too much work or no work. You either had no time with your family or a little too much time with your family. It's been a year where we've really had to strive to find that balance. And when we talk about balance, it's different for everyone, and there are different tactics that everyone puts in place. And some of our beautiful panelists here today are excited to share some of those thoughts when it's under the umbrella of finding the balance. So let's get into our panelists. First up, the wonderful Jenni Screen, high performance head coach Metro, and of course, former Australian Opal. So thrilled to have Jenni here with us. Naomi Maclean, we've got marketing director at Spalding, and Sherrin, a big wave hello to Naomi as well. Beck McIntyre, Wimmera Regional Sports Assembly project coordinator and Horsham Amateur Basketball Association board member. And the lovely Georgia Pineau, who is here as a high performance athlete development player for WNBL Bendigo Spirit, which yes, is kicking off WNBL tonight. We'll talk about that later. Now, we are inviting everyone to please join us in conversation today. There is a little Q&A at the bottom of your Zoom. You're welcome to pop a question in there, and we'll do our very best to get to a couple of them at the end. Thank you to everyone who already submitted questions up on our social media. We love them, and we'll try and get some of those in too. And at the end of today, we're going to be asking all our women to share with us a quote or a mantra or something for them that resembles balance or resembles the way in which they like to approach life. If you also have a mantra you live by, pop it in the chat, and if we can read it out, we'll do that too. So let's get straight into it. First up, I'd love everyone on our panel to be able to explain just a little bit about who you are personally and also what your involvement is in basketball. Two-time Olympian Jenni Screen, please kick it off for us today.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen that have tuned in. Thanks for having me. A little bit about myself away from the basketball court, because I think most would know a little bit about my basketball career, but away from the court, pretty low-key kind of person, love going to the gym and keeping fit. I'm a bit of a beach goer, love to read books, and I love to get out in nature. So been married for, that's a good thing, I can't even remember, I think since 2007, so 13 years now. No children, and but love my life away from the basketball court as much as I love it on the court.
Absolutely, Jen. You definitely needed absolutely no introduction on the basketball sense. So thank you very much for giving us that little bit of a personal insight as well. Next up, Georgia. Of course, we are excited for the WNBL season to kick off in far north Queensland, 6 o'clock tonight. Beautiful Georgia, as part of the development team for Bendigo Spirit, won't be playing this season due to an ACL injury. She's just about to have surgery. You'd never know looking at the smile on her face. But can you give us a bit of an insight, because you did have to do quarantine? What's the vibe like? How's everyone feeling? And you know, what's it like behind the scenes for the WNBL this season?
Yeah, everyone's really excited to kick off the season. It's such an interesting one this year, especially being up in North Queensland, having that Queensland season. So the quarantine hub was interesting, to say the least. It was a 2-week stint in Brisbane hotels with the 3 Victorian teams, and fortunately for us, we had such great quarantining rules with the Queensland government, and so we were able to train and practice during that whole time, which was great for us to be able to stay active during the time. We obviously had to be very compliant in the hotel and rules and restrictions like that, but yes, unfortunately for me, I did tear my ACL on Friday in our last practice, so I will not be playing this season, but I am in good spirits and I will be having surgery soon. But it was a very interesting time in the quarantine hub, and I'm sure people have been seeing on social media all the activities we got up to during that time, but it was good and everyone's very excited for the season.
Well, we are so disappointed for you, but so glad that you got a chance to at least get into that pre-season mode and have that experience with Spirit. And we look forward to seeing you on the court the next time we have a season, which who knows what the dates of that will be. Moving on next to Beck. As a woman who's worn so many hats across the industry as well, I'd love to know a bit more about your career and you personally.
Thank you very much for having me, firstly, and to Basketball Victoria for asking me to be obviously involved. And I feel very grateful to be sitting here in this esteemed company. I'm from Horsham in regional Victoria. So for people that don't know that about me, I've been involved in basketball for pretty well all of my life now, going through the Country Victoria pathway myself as a player, and then having some time out to get married. And I've got one daughter who's nearly 13 in a couple of weeks, which is hard to believe. And then obviously coming back in the last 5 years, one of my biggest passions is really about just empowering women and girls. I work in the sporting industry, so I'm the Women and Girls Coordinator for that. So I'm fortunate to be involved in all of the amazing government initiatives that were discussed before, Change Our Game and all of those kind of things. And really about just showing women that they do have the confidence to be able to be really active around the boardroom, because I realised pretty early on that that's where the decisions are made in basketball. As much as we might be parents, coaches, volunteers, spectators, to really impact change, we have to be around that boardroom. So that's one of my passions, is to really try and show women that they can have the confidence and be as impactful as they can in the sport by taking on leadership roles within their board environment. So thanks for having me.
Yes, Beck, that sounds super inspiring. We can't wait to chat about that a little bit more as well. And Naomi, we're so happy to have you here as well. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about the behind the scenes in the sporting world with the career that you've chosen?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for jumping online today. It takes a lot of effort, even though you're at home, to jump online to an event like this. So we so appreciate your company. So my professional career has really spanned across sports administration and sports management, with some specialties in marketing. And I love sport, play sport, work in sport. I'm married to a man that works in sport. So it's just really epitomizes my life. And For me, being an athlete, unlike Georgia, wasn't a pathway opportunity for me. My physical talents definitely didn't get me to that point, but I thought I could use my attributes to become skilled in the sports industry and look to make a difference, particularly for women across the industry. I came into a fairly male-dominated environment, more so through footy clubs initially on the Aussie rules side, but absolutely love working across basketball and AFL with my professional role now. And I like to try and lead and inspire and mentor future women in particular coming through the industry through my various roles at Deakin University. And I teach Pilates on the side just for fun, because why not? Fit it all in. That word balance, I've probably got some work to do.
Well, good, because that's what we're going to move on to now. I'd love to cover off the whole idea of balance and what does that mean to everyone here today? What is balance in your world? What are you juggling? What are you trying to find time for? What are you trying to excel in too many different areas at the same time? What does balance in your world stand for? And Beck, we're going to start with you. I know when we've chatted in the past, it's been about having that conversation with some sacrifices that you need to make in life. For you, there's a big one with, this fantastic career, but it takes you away from your family so often, especially on the weekends. Talk us through your sacrifices and how you try and find some balance in that space.
Sure. Obviously, I am married and I do have a daughter. So another impact on my sacrifices is where I live. So being regional in Victoria, I'm obviously generally a 3 to 4 hour drive away from most things, depending on what aspect in basketball it is. But I think that, we're all trying to juggle things. We're all trying to balance, even if you haven't got a family, we're all trying to juggle everything and be the best and the most to everyone. And I think that early on, I, have got a very supportive husband. So having the conversation with him that, he understood that for me to be the best version of myself, I have to go and do things that for me. That story about when you put your oxygen mask on first, when the plane's going down, you need to do that before you can put on your child's one, because for you to be the best mother and sister and wife and all of those things, you have to do what makes you happy. And for me, even though I do have to sacrifice family time, I am really happy doing what I do in my volunteer life with basketball. And it's something that I value deeply. And I was brought up in a family that, we gave back to community, and it was something very early on that I realized made me happy, and the absolute pleasure of being involved in other people's lives, whether that is professionally or in my time as coaching or whatever aspect I'm doing. But, that's a real honor to be someone and to be able to influence others. And that made me feel really happy and really good about myself. So when I am that person and the best version of myself, then obviously I'm able to give that to my family. So even though I may have to get up at 4 o'clock on a Sunday to get in the car by 4:45 to get to state training at 8:30 and then get home at 9 o'clock that night, as much as my family may or may not possibly have wanted me to be there for the day, we would discuss that as a family openly and honestly. And, I encourage them to follow their dreams and to do what inspires them as they do for me. So even though other people may see it as sacrifices, and it obviously is, it's something that I do to make myself the best version of me. And then in turn, that impacts everyone that I can and I have in my life.
What a woman, Beck. Wow. I'd love to open just that particular question up to the rest of our panel. If there's anyone else who wants to talk about sacrifices and what that looks like for you in finding some balance. Does anyone else want to share on that topic? Jen?
I'll jump in. I'm probably the opposite. I don't. I think if you want something in your life or you're striving for some goal, I don't know if there is actually ever true balance. I think we can get caught up in that word. As being an athlete in the past, I think you have to. I prefer the word invest. I don't like the word sacrifice, because I think if you really want something, or want to achieve something, then it's never really a sacrifice, because ultimately you're investing in certain choices you make in order to be able to get that outcome that you're trying to achieve. So for me, it's about trying to switch the narrative and the language, because I feel like sacrifice sometimes has a negative connotation to it. And for me, I love the word invest. I'm investing in this because this is what I want to achieve, or this is the outcome that I need to. If that means things forego because of that, well, I'm okay with that, because ultimately this is what I'm wanting to do here. So my husband might argue that, So you must have people around you, I think, that are very supportive, because I'm not home a lot. But for me, yeah, I don't think balance truly exists. As long as I get my 9 hours of sleep every night and I get to go to the gym, which is exciting now because the gyms are back open, I'm okay in terms of balance. But in terms of, you know, being a woman and wanting to strive and have goals and those types of things, to be honest, I don't think there ever is really balance. It's just investment.
Jenni, I love that thought of investment. But 9 hours sleep, how are you getting that? That's
because I go to bed really early. I'm in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock, but I'm up early. So, yeah, don't talk to me if I haven't had my 8-9 hours.
Oh my gosh, noted. Definitely noted. Georgia, moving on to you. I had a quick chat with your siblings, Alex and Dane Pineau as well, who is also a Southeast Melbourne Phoenix player, so also in the league. And I said to them, tell me about Georgia and her balance. And they said, actually, your siblings said nice things about you. They said that you have a lot of resilience in the way that you approach life. And I wonder if maybe that resilience and that attempt to kind of achieve that balance has come from being part of such an amazingly high-performing athletic family, or maybe that's something that you learnt over in college and trying to have so many conflicting areas of your life at the same time, from studies to sport to social and being away. Tell us a little bit about balance in your world.
Yeah, I mean, from my family especially, it was like growing up, I had such a supportive family, mom and dad, Alex and Dane. That I think that's where I found like the balance originally from, was because growing up, they threw me into like every sport. They were always there at my games, watching me, getting me to trainings and stuff like that. So having such a supportive family really helped me find the balance. And then like going to school, going to college, there's things like you have to sacrifice a little bit, but being at college, it's such an environment where you have to find like a balance of having friendships and going to basketball and making sure you have friends and things outside of basketball. Otherwise, you just become very invested into one thing, and you have to have the balance in your life of numerous activities. And I think that's where my mom and dad came in. Mom and dad are very, very different individuals. Mom is very work driven and obviously very like into my studies, whereas dad was my basketball rock mostly. And so it was nice having like the side of my parents having that balance in my family life. And so I think that's where it all came from. And then obviously going to college, I'd learned all of those aspects of my life from those two. And so balancing my studies and basketball over there became pretty easy for me, and just because of my family being so supportive growing up.
I wanted to be adopted by your family during the isolation period, because you guys had party nights every night. And the rumor is that you were the bartender. Maybe that's where the balance is. Every family member has to have a role in isolation to make it fun. Was that the plan?
Yeah, that was the plan. I think a lot of people know me as like being a very positive, energetic person. And I think that's just the way that I look at life, like seeing the light and everything. And so when I was at home, everyone was struggling so much with the lockdowns and everything, and our family tried to find the light in weekends and like events. So we had 4 birthdays during that time. Luckily for me, my birthday was not then. But we just tried to find the light in all of those birthdays and like doing celebrations here and there, so then we could make sure that we're still having fun and as best as we could.
Yeah, that's great. And Naomi, of course, working in such a high-powered position in such a big company, and especially being in sport, which obviously means it's not normal hours, where do you find the balance between that work and that home life?
Yeah, so I probably sit a little bit in Jenni's basket too. Balance isn't something that I really can achieve at times, but for me, it's about being passionate and loving what I do, and making sure as many of the buckets in my professional life and personal life are getting watered. So it might be that I have quality over quantity with family members, or quality over quantity with my husband. He's a shift worker in sport, and so you make the most of what you've got. And it's about finding things that you're passionate about. For me, is where I keep my balance. So Pilates is one of those. It was a passion project, and I wanted to, whilst it takes up my time, I still wanted to do something that I love. And working in sport, similarly, even though it's my professional career, is something that I love doing too. So for me, being at an event after hours or on a weekend, or having to start early or travel for work, I don't call it work. I'm fortunate enough that I can get up every day and really love what I do. And that would be what I would say to individuals is find things that you're passionate about, find things that you love doing, and you'll probably find your balance slots in, because you'll start to really hone in on what you love more than anything.
Oh, I love that thought. And for especially so many youngsters who are on here today, that's just a great one when you're thinking about your future and your career and what you want to do. Choose that passion path for sure. And one last one on a personal level when it comes to balance in our lives. Jenni, do you mind chatting to us a little bit about, especially if you're operating as an athlete, how do you gave us an insight with the sleeping in the gym, but how do you get that balance with your health, your mental and physical health, when you're trying to strive so hard to achieve something in your life?
Oh, I think you answered the question for me. My gym and my sleep is for my mental health. I really struggled in lockdown, especially in the last couple of months, in terms of not being able to go to the gym. Metal for me is my mental therapy. I love being able to shift weight, and weights don't lie. You can't kind of cheat a metal bar and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where I get my mental health from, is being able to go to the gym, get my sleep, and then just choosing carefully who I spend my time with. Naomi spoke about it in terms of the quality over quantity, and knowing who's important in my life, and making sure that that's getting ticked off. And I think I've realized, as probably a lot of these people, whilst Zoom is great and the 2D version, I was really freaking out about today in terms of being able to hold a sentence, because I really haven't spoken to anyone apart from my husband for like 8 months. So it's quite a daunting time right now as we transition back into the real world. So for me, it's just about, keeping physically active is really important to my mental health.
Yeah, some great tips in there. So glad you're chatting to us. Please, Naomi, go ahead.
I think Jenni picked up on something, and obviously, lockdown wasn't easy for everyone. I probably flipped it a little bit more for me and took the chance with the quiet time to find better balance and to set plans and strategies for when we return to normal. How am I going to implement those balance strategies, and how am I going to find that space and create more time for me, or create more time for the things that I love that I wasn't quite getting to as much? And anyone that else has struggled through lockdown, it's been incredibly hard for so many people. If you can find a silver lining out of it on the way back into normal life, or normal, whatever that means moving forward, but into your day-to-day, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, thanks, Naomi. Absolutely. That silver lining, if it's there, if you can dig for it now with a bit of space, now that we're kind of coming out of it, and kind of healing from that time, then yeah, that silver lining would be a good one to find. We're going to shift our thinking to the future of basketball now. And when we talk about balance, it's not just about balance in our lives and trying to balance juggle all the balls at the same time. It's also about equality. How do we get some equality? And one of the questions that came through repeatedly when we put it up as an option on our social media channels is, how do we think we can better support women's sport? So I'm going to kick this one off with you, Beck. I know you mentioned it earlier, and I know something that you're really passionate about is about decisions aren't made on the court, they're made in the boardroom. How do we go about getting more women in there? What's the plan to make that happen?
Yeah, look, I found out pretty early on when I came back to basketball about 5 years ago that, I had some, excellent ideas and some questions, I suppose, on how things were run and why they were run that way, and realized that, as a coach or a parent or a volunteer generally, you're not really having any ability to change that because you're not where the decisions are getting made. So, something that I do in my job, which I'm very fortunate to be able to do, is we provide governance training just to women across all sports. So I actually get the ability to be able to help and impact all sport, but basically just give them a really solid grounding, and it's a basic grounding, but an understanding of how governance works. So I think that women basically get scared away because they feel like they don't have anything to actually add to a boardroom. But if you're a mother or an athlete, you've got all the skills and abilities you need to be able to actually have an influence in those voices that are needed around the boardroom. When you have diversity, it brings fresh perspectives. So it brings different questions, different things asked and highlighted. So, you know, I often use the example that if you're a mum and you're doing your family budget at home, you know, looking at what risk you might take this fortnight to what risk, you know, so you've got money in the bank for your other expenses. That's very similar to how clubs and associations are run. It's a very general example, but, you know, we all have these skills in our day-to-day lives that we can actually help and impact. And when we're in the discussion and the discussions are happening, that's when we truly can have our voices heard. And really, it's about giving women that bit of knowledge so that they have the confidence that then they can speak up. So the more women we can get out there in leadership roles, obviously, in all aspects of sport, but especially the boardroom, that's when we're going to see that ability for impact of change to really start to happen, because our voices are going to be heard. They might always not be agreed with, and it might always not be approved, but at least we're starting. And the more people we out there having, spreading that message and putting in that different perspective, then the better outcomes we're going to have for all sport.
So there are a lot of women on this that are tuning in right now, and consider that your pep talk from Beck, because that is a good bit of energy to put out there and good motivation for people to start taking that next step. Thank you so much, Beck. Naomi, as well, I know that you're teaching in the sports management field, and of course that's one way to educate our young women as they come through. What are you trying to instill in them as an educator?
Yeah, so thanks, Candy. Absolutely, it's something I'm passionate about, doing my work at Deakin University with students that are coming through into the field. Part of my job is to actually be an advocate for the females in the course that are thinking about getting into sport and wanting to chase that pathway, and how I can help mentor them or guide them through that phase. The other job that we do, though, is education, particularly for a lot of the diverse groups in the course, whether they're international students or whether they're coming, say, your traditional 18 to 21-year-old male that are sitting the course, is educate them around some of the minority groups and the challenges that women have had occur through that period of time in sport. And if we were to halt men's sport for 100 years, where could we get women's sport? We kind of throw those sort of philosophies at them and get them to think about what that could look like. And it's really about opening pathways, opening doors. I often take them on in as interns into the business, or try and network them through, or provide recommendations of where they want to chase. And there's no reason why they can't do it now. It's still a more male-dominated area, and often the proportion of my classes that I'm teaching are 80% male, 20% female, but I strongly urge anyone that's watching the webinar today, if you want to get a career in sport on the business side or the administration side or the management side, it's absolutely possible, and doors are opening more and more than ever before, which is so exciting, a lot more than when I finished graduating.
So for potentially our older women here who have got a bit more experience, you've had your pep talk from Beck. Now for our younger participants, that was your pep talk from Naomi. Thank you so much for sharing that. Where are you teaching that, just so they know?
So at Deakin University, in the undergraduate course for the Bachelor of Sport Business, it's called. It often changes its name, but there's also double degrees in sports science and the business course, which cross over into the units that I help teach. So.
And staying with you, just one more question, Naomi, as well. I know you shared some exciting news about Ezzy and your company. Would you mind sharing that with everyone as well?
Yeah, sure. So Ezzy was already mentioned today, but she is officially a Spalding athlete. We signed her at the beginning of the year. Obviously, COVID's provided some challenges, but so incredible for what she did over in America in the WNBA. Ironically, sadly, she was the first female athlete for Spalding to sign globally in a basketball perspective, which is a challenge that I threw to our US head office. It's certainly something that we're not proud of as a business collectively, and absolutely want to grow our female ambassadorship across the board. But Ezzy is a bit of a watershed moment for us, and she's an incredible talent, incredibly humble, and I can't wait to see what she does in the WNBL this season and then into her future career. But it's an important message for us to share as a brand in sport and in basketball, that we are supporting all different diversities and opportunities in the game.
Yay. Well done. Thank you so much for sharing that, Naomi. Jenni, you've got a massive voice in this industry from so many different touch points. And you've worked so hard, I think, to really make sure that you get to have that voice in all different aspects. Is there some change that you're trying to work towards? What's the goal?
The goal is just to always have a seat at the table. I am a passionate, proud woman, and I love this game of basketball. I think we have a unique sport where I believe we've never been challenged to not feel a part of the sport. So unlike AFL, where it's been predominantly male dominated, I think for basketball, I rarely never feel that I'm not welcome to play, or I never felt like that when I was growing up. We never had that, you can't play because you're a girl. Now the shift comes, okay, like Beck spoke about, in terms of the boardrooms and where decisions are made. I think at a grassroots level, keeping girls involved is really important. But if they, fall by the wayside because they don't, like Naomi spoke about, have the athletic talent to go on, then there are other opportunities within sport, which I think is really important that we continue to push them. And I think it comes from, one, the trailblazers that have come before us, two, us as women now continuing to have a voice and being willing to be vulnerable and put our voice out there. And secondly, don't just try once. I say this to the athletes all the time. Women are pleasers. We're nurturers by nature, genetically, but we don't like to fail. Women downright don't like to fail. They want to do things perfectly and all those type of things. I think we need to embrace, failing and screwing up and not doing it right and then go again. And that's where I think men are really good at. They just don't, I was going to swear, but I've been told many a time today not to swear. They don't care. Like they're happy to screw up and then just go again and learn from that. Whereas I think us women, sometimes we want to get it perfect the first go, and that never happens. So for me, it's continuing to sit on the tables. For me, with FIBA and the Players Commission as the Deputy Chair, is a big one for me. I have no problems with ringing people to voice my opinions and have difficult conversations and have real conversations. I think that's the important part. And then it also comes with how I lead myself and carry myself around a basketball court to show younger women how I act and to be brave and bold, I think is really important too. And then behind the scenes, obviously with the commentary and stuff, keep drumming it out there, because people only see what they see. And if we're not out there, and it's great that we're streaming all our games with the WNBL this year, but if we're not on TV, then we can't be seen. And that's the thing. If we have that shift in media, then I think ultimately the game will continue to grow.
Which absolutely we do this year with the WNBL broadcast every single game, all 60 games live across KO and ABC and Foxtel. It's a massive viewership and a great chance for us to get some eyeballs on the sport. Georgia.
I just wanted to chime in with that too, talking about women and like how we're going to support each other and how we're going to empower young women. I think for me at college especially, this is where I learned this, is when we got there, there's obviously such a big range of sports at college sports, but for us to empower each other, we used to make this thing where we would all go watch each other's games. Like all the women would go watch other sports. So like our basketball team, first of all, I never even went to a men's ice hockey game. I would only go to the women's ice hockey games, like things like that. And I think just us going and like showing our support as like other athletes of other sports and other areas, like just us supporting each other will really start to definitely build up the women and making sure that young women know that they're supported. And even like in the Bendigo Spirit, like I was only there for a short amount of time. I've only been there for a short amount of time, but even like so much, we've already had so much contact with like the younger athletes, and just they're so upset that we can't play in front of them this year. But I think just like trying to incorporate each other, those younger girls in our WNBL season this year is super imperative, just so they can have those role models and know that they can be successful in the
Love
future.
to hear that passion in your voice, Georgia. And it is true. Like the more we all as women support each other at every age and at every level, the more we can lift each other up together. So Georgia, thank you. That's a good tip. We should all just go watch each other and support each other and turn up at work and cheer for each other. so that we're giving that support across the board. The very last question for our panelists, which we did let everyone know we were going to ask at the start, is a little tip or a quote or a mantra that you live by. Jenni, would you like to start for us?
Yep, the one that I live by, and I struggle with this every day of my life, even though it might not come across that way, is that I'm enough. Self-doubt is something that runs deep in me. So I actually got a ring when I went to my second Olympics. My husband made me a ring, which is the 5 Olympic rings, and they blend together, and it has engraved on it, I am enough. And it's funny enough to think that, you know, I've achieved so much, yet I feel like this. And I think a lot of women are like that. So for me, it's always I am enough. And the thing that I do, just quickly, is I call it the doorway challenge. And I got this one from Michael Phelps. And every time you walk through a doorway, you either say those words out loud, your mantra, or you say it in your head, and you tap the doorway above you. So there's a lot of doorways and a lot of houses. And I think the more we can start that positive reinforcement, like you said, Candy, with the mantra, for me, it's I am enough. So I challenge you women to consider the doorway challenge.
Next time we would see Jen tapping the door, at least now we know what she's doing, not just checking if she's high enough. Beck, have you got one for us?
Yeah, look, mine is just pretty simple. It's, I think as you get older, you get a little bit more wiser. So as Jenni said before, choose the people that you spend your time with. I think that, you know, you are a direct representation of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So I think for me, I'm really conscious of who I choose to give the time that I have to people, and make sure that they are inspiring, real, honest, vulnerable, all of those things, and all the values that I really care for, is that I want the people that surround me to lift me up, to also call me out, and to, you know, bring me out of those things that I need to, or tell me when, you know, I can be better. But, you know, there's just no room for drama. There's no room for criticism. You know, there's always that saying that people are going to say something about you no matter what. So when you learn to realize that what other people think about you has actually got nothing to do with you, then I think you release a lot in your life as women. And, you know, it's not about what we have to give. It's about what we can help others realize they have to give. And that's what I try and do, is just be a real role model, but also lead by example, but allow other people to believe in themselves when they sometimes can't believe in them.
Awesome. Thank you, Beck. Naomi?
Such incredible comments from everyone. It's amazing. Great talent on the panel today. For me, it's quite simple. It's to always do my best and to be okay with that. You can't do anything more than your best, and it doesn't matter if it's not perfect. And if I can rest my head at night on the pillow and go, you know what, I did my best today, and that's, for me, I'm content with that. And the only other one that I live by is to be passionate. Be passionate about what you do and who you hang out with and what you love.
Well, you're in good company today, that's for sure. And George, lastly to you.
Mine is also a short and simple one. Why not? So that's the kind of mantra that I live by, and it's kind of like, why can't I? Why can't I do this? Why wouldn't I do this? And something gets presented in front of me. It's just like, I look at it as like opportunities. And so like, why not me? Why can't I do that type way? That's the way I have kind of always lived.
I'll finish us up with my favorite, which is a bit of a tongue twister. So let's see if I can spit it out. But I love the Dr. Zeus quote, which is, today you are you. It is truer than true. There's no one alive that is youer than you. And the reason I love that is if I approach every single thing in my life being myself, knowing I'm being true to myself, knowing I'm doing the best for my own abilities, just being me and the best version of me that I can. That's kind of how I try and achieve the best I can too. So I think there's a little something there for everyone. I've seen so many amazing quotes coming through on our chat as well. And I'm hoping maybe we can get Basketball Victoria to collect some of those up, and maybe we can pop them up on our socials a little later, because we are running out of time. I'm so sorry. I do want to invite onto our panel to have a chat now, of course, Zoe Carr, high performance head coach, Country Women, to stick back with Jenni and to have a chat about Basketball Victoria and some stuff that's coming up that's exciting in the future. But before I do, just big thank you once again to our amazing panel. I will give you a virtual standing ovation on behalf of all the people that are on here with us today. Thank you for being candid and sharing your stories with us. So much inspiration, lots of food for thought, and good job trying to attempt to find some kind of balance in this crazy 2020. So thank you to our panelists for today, and over to Jenni and Zoe.
Zoe, you can kick off, hon. I think I've spoken way too much, so I'll hand the floor over to you.
And if we can get your video on, Zoe, that would be wonderful. Or Jen, over back to you.
I actually think they've entered the wrong Zoe. I'm pretty sure there's two Zoes and the other one is Zoe Carr, but I'm sure they'll fix that in the back end. Yeah, look, we got asked to speak in just quickly about the coaching and high performance, and I'm going to come, Zoe will speak more about the coaching, but I'm going to come from a woman's perspective, and I'm going to implore you as woman to woman to be brave and be bold. And I think we don't do enough of that as women. I saw a comment come through about, are we scared of failing, or is it because we're held to harsher judgment? I don't think anyone holds themselves to more harsher judgment than themselves. So I just want women to continue to put one foot forward and continue to be in the arena. For me, I love the Theodore Roosevelt quote, and it's not the critics that count. It's the people, or I don't say men, it's the people in the arena, bloodied and marred by dust, that for me is what matters. So I implore you, if you are interested in sport, any sport, but specifically basketball, and whether that be high performance or diversity and so on, continue to step up and continue to put your foot forward. Even if you don't think you have the capabilities, be vulnerable, be willing to just put yourself out there, and also draw upon what women have. And I think that what we have compared to men is that we have a little bit more compassion. I think we have a lot more empathy, and we are able, I think, maybe not, but I think we have the ability to sense emotions and read rooms a little bit better than men do. No disrespect to the men, but I think that's what we can call upon sometimes when it comes to coaching, especially young girls. I think the more that we can be great role models for them by being bold, by being brave and not apologizing for it, and being okay with sometimes being labeled intimidating or a bitch, because I get that all the time in my life, then I'm okay with that, because that means that for the young girl looking up to me, that she feels comfortable being that way as well. And the more we start to transcend that way by being brave and bold and vulnerable, I think the more chances you'll see women in coaching positions and women in boardrooms and so on and so forth. So that's my imploring to you is be bold, be brave, and most definitely be vulnerable, and have a go.
I'll just take over. Thank you for having me, everybody. Yeah, I've been asked to speak a little bit about obviously our high performance program and how we can try and increase some numbers of female athletes. And high performance is a little bit of a different space in that it's not a participation program, but there are things we can do, I think, to get more females to the level to be able to be a part of this program. So I believe, and I may be wrong, but I believe that it starts with our coaches, and it starts with our female coaches. We know it's been touched on already about a little bit about the way we're wired as humans, and as young female athletes, I only had, I think, 2 female coaches throughout my whole time. So being able to have those role models, those female role models that can help us or help our athletes feel more comfortable in the space, feel more comfortable making mistakes and pushing themselves outside of their comfort zone is massive, and will then help us with being able to develop these athletes through the pathway. So I believe it starts with our coaches, and we need to get to a point where all coaches, not just female coaches, but all coaches are accredited, knowledgeable, and experienced. So when the time comes to put our hand up for that role, whatever it might be, we're in a position to take it, grab it, feel like we belong there, and then be successful. And so that starts for me with making sure that we've got a community around each of it for our female coaches, a community around each other where we can support each other, share our stories, do what we need to do, but also catch us when we fall, because we all fall. I fell when I coached several times, but we need to make sure then we've got somebody who can help pick them up and say, hey, you're okay, dust yourself off, this is what we need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because at the moment, I feel like what we've got is a little bit of, we're kind of out there on our own. And while we're out there on our own and we're severely outnumbered, it makes it really difficult to then walk into that room or walk into that onto that court and demand the court the way we need to. So there's no doubt that coaching for females is trying at times. There is an unconscious bias. There's no two ways about it. Some of the things, we've all the coaches out there would have experienced it before. I can't tell you the amount of times I've been asked, I've walked in to coach a team at a senior level and been asked if I'm the team manager. Just it goes from little things to that to massive disrespect. And thankfully, I had the support network around me to keep me going, because there were times that I looked for that exit ramp to say, this is too hard. I don't want to put my time into this if this is how I'm going to be treated. So we need to move towards a theory of, we're going to bust into this room. We're going to make sure that, you know, if we're in a course, if we're at a clinic, if we're at a whatever it might be, it's strange that female coaches aren't there, as opposed to, oh, we've only got one or two. And again, that I believe that comes from our community. If you tell a male coach, and not absolutes here, but if you tell a male coach they're going to coach the Lakers next week, they're coaching the Lakers in the NBA, they're great, I'm in. If you tell a female coach that they're coaching the Storm next week, no thanks, I'm not ready. And so our community can get each other, we can band together, get each other the experience they need, the knowledge that they need, and then that support to be able to push through and increase our numbers. We increase our female coaching numbers, I believe we will keep more girls and female athletes in the sport. So I'd love to talk, I could talk about this forever, but I've only got 3 minutes. So if there are any coaches out there at the moment that would like to connect, touch base, I'd love to get to know you. I'd love to work with you and start to build that community face-to-face, whether it be via Zoom, whatever it might be, so we can really make a dent in this, and understanding that it's not going to change overnight. But a quote that I love is, and that I kind of live by, is I want to plant the seeds for the tree that I know I'll never sit in the shade of. And so, yes, it's hard. Yes, sometimes you feel like you're banging against a brick wall and there's nothing happening. But if I can make it a fraction easier for the little under 12 athlete at the moment that's going to come through and become a female coach, I've done my job. So if anybody else is like that, we've obviously got there's the Hear Us Roar group on Facebook. But if anybody wants to actually, yes, Beck, if anybody actually wants to connect personally and have some discussions or whatever it might be, my email is zoe.carr@basketballvictoria.com.au, and I'd love to hear from you and start the ball rolling. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Zoe. And that's a great quote as well for us to end today on. One more time, a big thank you to the wonderful Jenni, Naomi, Beck, Georgia, and Zoe as well. We loved having everyone here. There will be a short survey being sent out. We'd love your opinions and giving us any thoughts on today as well. We know this is a bit of a different year, but isn't 2020 all about that? We look forward to welcoming you back next year, hopefully back into a big, beautiful room once again. But we're so thrilled that we got to have so many on here today as a result of this being a Zoom session. So thank you to everyone who came along. Wishing everyone lots of good luck for the rest of 2020, and whatever balance you're looking for, we hope you find it. For very final thoughts, I'd like to hand straight back to Nick Honey.
Thanks, Candy. And we'll close there. Thank you so much to our panel. Thanks, Georgia. Thanks, Beck. Thanks, Naomi. Really appreciate your time. Wonderful BV employees. It's been a tough year being a BV employee, but we're getting through. Thanks so much, Jenni and Zoe. Appreciate your time. And Candy, thank you so much for hosting today. You've done a brilliant job of hosting this webinar, and you do a brilliant job supporting our sport. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you very much. Thanks also to Danielle Green for coming on today and supporting us. And really, we hope you pass back the message that we've really appreciated working closely with and the support from the state government through these tough times. With that, we'll bring it to an end. Thanks everyone for your time today, and this will be recorded, so you will be able to find it online when we post it, and hope you have a wonderful afternoon and a great week after that. So thanks everyone. See you later.